Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new chapter of Old Man Brad. Whether you are new to the show or returning for another chapter, thank you so much for giving this little horror podcast a listen. And if you love the show, drop me a review over on your favorite podcast app. I would love to hear what you think of the show. So this week we have another indie horror film for you, and that is Starve Acre, which is based off of a book of the same name. And it stars Matt Smith and Morfydd Clark. We will dig into that. I'm going to give my spoiler-free thoughts on the movie here in a second. Before we do, I want to thank everybody who came out to Frightful Fridays this past week for our screening of The Blair Witch Project. It was a good crowd, so much fun, gave me that throwback feeling to when it originally came out and seeing it with a big group of people. And The Blair Witch Project still is a great movie. Absolutely love The Blair Witch. But come out for the next Frightful Fridays. We do it on the third Friday of every month. And our screening for August is I Know What You Did Last Summer. So come out to the Esquire Theater in Cincinnati. We're going to have a blast. I can't wait to see everyone there. All right, let's dig into Starve Acre.
Let's expel our demons. He forgives you.
No.
Richard, can we talk?
No.
I can't speak to Richard about it. He's convinced that everything's fine.
Richard's heart's in right place.
How are you both?
We're fine.
Have you found any buried treasure out there yet?
Not today.
You shouldn't be in here.
Richard's writing. It's weird, Jules.
It's gonna be okay.
An idyllic rural family life of a couple is thrown into turmoil when their son starts acting out of character. This is written and directed by Daniel Kokutajlo, and it stars Matt Smith and Morfydd Clark. This movie is hitting limited theaters on July 26th. It will also be out on VOD as well. You can go check it out there. Before I dive into much of the movie, I'm going to say, overall, I did enjoy the film. It has some pacing issues and some shortcomings that totally didn't work for me, but it didn't completely ruin the movie. It was well acted. Morfydd Clark, who some may know from Saint Maud, movie that came out a couple years ago, she was phenomenal in that movie. She is also in the Lord of the Rings, The Power of the Ring series on Amazon Prime. And everybody knows Matt Smith. He was Doctor Who. He's been in many things. Both of them were great in this movie. Everybody who was in this movie was great. And this movie, it's about their child. It starts off real strong. Their child, kind of a dark force in him. He ends up killing an animal. So they're trying to figure out what is up with him. And there are times right at the beginning, I was like, is this going to be like an Omen type of thing where you have like a dark child and the devil's going to come and other said stuff is going to happen? But no, it takes a little turn here at the beginning. Not really much of a spoiler, but the son passes away. Something happens. He passes away. And then it's just this like a descent into darkness, basically. You have this mother and this father dealing with the grief and the loss of their child. They're dealing with it in completely different ways. Matt Smith's character, Richard, he just kind of closes himself off. He goes outside. He has there's a scene where he has a tent and he's just like digging. There's something down below. He's digging to unearth it. Mom, played by Morfydd Clark, her character, Juliet, her sister comes and they're kind of repainting the house, cleaning things. I think to her, she just wants to completely start over. So if we put paint up and we do all these things, we can basically kind of start anew. She feels guilty for what happens. This movie is a very, very slow burn. It kind of, it takes a while to kind of get going. And there are moments where that pacing could hurt it for especially some watchers. For me, it did a little bit because it really did take a while. It looks phenomenal. The countryside that it's filmed in looks great. The acting was phenomenal. Morfydd Clark's character, she reminded me of, it's kind of paced a little bit kind of like Saint Maud. She's in Saint Maud. It's kind of like that slow burn of that. These two people are trying to dealing with this in their own way. And then at one point, a box shows up. And Matt Smith, he finds it. And it's a skeleton of a jackrabbit. But this jackrabbit keeps regenerating, basically, and comes back. It's a twisted story. This movie is based off of a book of the same name, Starve Acre, by Andrew Michael Hurley. I've never read the book, so before I saw a trailer for this, it looked very interesting. I love Matt Smith, and I wanted, in the trailer, makes it really dark and disturbing, which there are moments where it is. There's a moment in this movie with a jackrabbit and the mom that you're going to be like, what the hell just am I watching? But the way things kind of play out, I'm sure the book really dives into the psyche of these two characters, of how she feels guilty for what happened to her son, and he's very resentful towards her, and the way it kind of plays out. Like I said, overall, I did enjoy Starve Acre. I'd give it a 3 out of 5. It was solid, but it didn't completely blow me away. It took a little while to get, like, it starts off great. The opening scene is great. And then it kind of slows down. I think it really takes like 45-ish. It's only an hour and a half. So it takes about 45-ish minutes to get to the next piece of this jackrabbit and everything else. You're following these two, husband and wife, as they're kind of dealing with what's going on, which is completely great. It was well acted, well everything else, but it just kind of needed, for me, it needed to kind of pick up a little earlier. And this is completely unspoiled. I'm not going to give away some things that happen. Like I said, there's one scene that's going to shock you. There are a couple other pieces in there that are very shocking. The countryside in this looks beautiful, like I said, and it is worth checking out. So go check it out. July 26th, it comes out. Starve Acre. And let me know what you think when you go see it. Was it worth it? Did it hit you differently than it hit me? As I head out, I've said this multiple episodes in a row, I have been hooked on 70s horror. I just watched 2 the other day that are directed by Armando de Osorio, who was the director of the Blind Dead saga I have talked about before. But these 2 movies are vampire movies. One's called Fangs of the Living Dead, and the other is called Night of the Sorcerers. They were pretty solid movies. Not too bad. Not as good as his Blind Dead films, but they were enjoyable nonetheless. But one I am definitely going to recommend for you to check out on Tubi. It is called Mansion of the Doomed from 1976. This is a crazy movie about this woman who goes blind and the surgeon who is trying to figure out basically how to bring her eyesight back. So he captures people and takes their eyes out and implants them in her, but it only works for so long, so he's got to get somebody else. It's a wild movie. It is pretty gory, pretty bloody, and highly recommend checking out Mansion of the Doomed on Tubi. Well, that will do it for another chapter of Old Man Brad. Thank you so much for listening, and I want to give a big shout out to all the patrons of Old Man Brad. Thank you so much for supporting the show. If you really, really love Old Man Brad, you can support me over at patreon.com/oldmanbrad, where I do more reviews over there and try to do some special things just for patrons. But I will be back soon with a brand new chapter. I have a special guest coming up. We are going to talk about Killer Body Count, the Tubi original film. So we have a new Tales from Tubi coming soon. Just watch for that. And a few other things in the works. just make sure you subscribe to the show and you will never miss any episode of the show. Thank you so much for listening. Just snuggle up in that blanket, turn off the lights, because it's okay to be scared. We'll talk to you later, everybody.